go.
Okay, there you go. All right, let's go. Question number 2. This is a 2-part question from, I believe, Peg Burney is the name, Peg Burney. How much can a state do to protect its borders when the federal government refuses to act? Second question, how much is the government spending on NGOs to transport, house, etc., those who come here illegally?
So let me take the second question first, and I'm going to come back to state sovereignty with respect to immigration. With respect to NGOs, we're not sure how much the NGOs are spending to transport people through the United States. That's one of the lines of questioning we've actually asked the administration for. The administration has refused to answer that question. We've asked the administration a lot of questions about immigration writ large. The administration does not respond to congressional requests. Well, I don't want to speak for the members of the majority party. I know that in the minority party, they're not responding to our requests associated with the cost of immigration, and specifically moving people through the United States the last 14, 15 months. What is the role of states? I know Governor DeSantis signed a law basically that, or put in the budget that they will bus people out of the state to DC. I know Governor Abbott did a similar thing for border communities in Texas, sending them directly to DC saying you deal with it. Or I think Governor DeSantis sent it to Delaware. The reality is, the problem we have at the southern border is one specific thing. The Biden administration's view of asylum is the most radical view of asylum ever in American history. The southern border is an illegal entry point into the United States. It is not a legal point of entry. If somebody wants to claim asylum, they should do it in their home country at the United States Embassy, or if their country doesn't have one, at the next closest country to theirs. What is happening with immigration is, I'm going to use China as an example. If you are immigrating into the United States illegally from China, you basically pay roughly $10,000 to $15,000 to the coyotes, aka the drug cartels. You hop on a plane from somewhere in China to Mexico. Mexico has a tourist visa agreement with China. So Mexico, when you get there, they give you a tourist visa. From Mexico, you fly, somewhere in Mexico, you fly from there, whether it's Tijuana or Mexicali, or I forget one of the other cities south of El Paso. That might be Mexicali. Forgive me on Mexican geography. But to one of the border cities in Mexico. You either fly there or you take the route that the cartel has you take to cross the southern border. When you come up to the southern border, and I know this because I was just there last week, when you come up to the southern border, they are ditching the Mexican identification Mexico gave them to come into Mexico. They're throwing it on the ground, crossing the border, walking up to a border agent and claiming asylum. Because there's no documentation on their person for us to say that Mexico gave them legal authority to be in their country, we are not sending them back to Mexico. We are then doing an asylum vetting on the southern border. We're processing people, giving them a court date, and releasing them into the United States. That is the process that's happening on the southern border. I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not being political, I'm explaining what's happening. So if you go back to the issue we have with immigration, it is because the Biden administration has the most liberal interpretation of asylum we've ever had, number one. Number two, they are allowing asylum to be processed indiscriminately on the southern border. That makes no sense. Because what the drug cartels are doing, they know what the laws and the implementation is here as well. So they're saying, oh yeah, okay, cool. We'll move 100 or 200 people across the border illegally. When the border agent, I was in Yuma section last week, when the border agent is occupied with 100 people, and I saw them standing right there on the side of the road with the border agent, when they're occupied with this border agent, the cartel then moves drug traffickers with fentanyl, heroin, cocaine across the southern border. You want to know why we have a fentanyl crisis in the United States? It's because the southern border is wide open. The drug cartels know this. The Biden administration knows this. Neither one is apt to change anything right now. It is a sad state of affairs. What can states do? There was a Supreme Court decision back in 2014 dealing with Arizona's law that would check for immigration status if you engage law enforcement. The Supreme Court at that time gave the President of the United States plenary power with respect to immigration. So unfortunately, most of the governmental apparatus, whether it's the federal government or state government, has their hands tied. because it's all been placed into the hands of the president. And depending on the whims of the president determines how immigration is enforced. State lawmakers are very limited in what they can do. I'm quite sure some of this is going to end up in court, and we'll see what the Supreme Court decides then. But if you were going to ask me what our real problem is that the president has completely abused the asylum process. Asylum was never supposed to be this. There was never any contemplation by any Congress at any point in American history that would have allowed for this asylum process to be used the way it is being used. So, the state's hands are tied. They're trying to do everything they can to protect their citizens, as they should. There's some questions about an Article 4 case being moved, because there's a question in Article 4 of the Constitution. The federal government actually has a responsibility to defend the sovereignty of states. And if states are feeling their sovereignty is being challenged and the federal government's not doing anything to protect it, there's potentially an Article 4 lawsuit associated with that. But it's really tough right now. I've been to the border 3 times in a year. Our border agents are tired. Their morale is incredibly low. The suicide rate of our border agents are up. It's a very bad situation. And the last thing I will say, what the administration refuses to answer is, what about the young girls who are being sold into sex slavery by the cartels? What about the young girls who are being raped south of the border? What about the young girls whose parents are either putting them on birth control or giving them Plan B because they know they're going to be raped in this journey? Nobody talks about any of that. And the administration needs to answer for all of that, in my view.
Thank you.